Empress Sarah rose from the obsidian throne, her iridescent scales catching the chamber's lumen globes in a cascade of imperial blues, silencing the assembled court with the sheer weight of her presence. The Zalari Imperium endures by blood right and unyielding will, she declared, her voice a silken blade slicing through the murmurs. To safeguard the Veil Artery, the lifeblood of our trade fleets, I bind this realm in marriage alliance to the Terran Federation. Let the treaty be sealed in the ancient rite. The grand hall of Ebonspire thrummed with restrained tension, holographic banners of swirling nebulae flickering above the tiered ranks of nobles, admirals, and faction heads. Zaray's 4 primary eyes fixed on the shuttle's docking feed projected beside her, where the human envoy emerged, Captain Jonah Miles, striding down the ramp in his crisp Federation uniform, black with silver insignia, his posture unyielding despite the null-grav transition. He was compact, broad-shouldered for his kind, with skin the dull beige of unpolished alloy, and hair cropped short in that utilitarian fashion humans favored. No finery, no augmentations gleaming under his flesh, merely a sidearm holstered at his belt and a data slate clutched in one steady hand. The court doors parted with a hydraulic hiss, admitting him flanked by protocol drones. Jonah halted at the prescribed mark, 10 paces from the dais, and executed the interstellar bow. Precise, fluid, without flourish. Zaray allowed the silence to stretch, her secondary eyes scanning the hall for flickers of dissent. The subtle crest flares among the conservative lords, the coiled tension in Admiral Kresh's tail. Captain Jonah Miles, she said at last, her tone laced with regal disdain that masked the calculations churning beneath. Your species sends a consort who looks as if forged from the scrap of a frontier hauler. Does Terra lack for stature, or do you embody their highest aesthetic, blocky, unadorned, and faintly odorous? Laughter rippled through the ranks, sharp and obligatory, as she leaned forward, her crest partially unfurling to assert dominance. It was no idle barb. It tested him, reminded all that humans were novelties, petitioners at her gate, their diplomacy a veil for desperation after the score of raids crippled their fringe colonies. Jonah did not flinch. His gray eyes met hers, level, unblinking, holding the gaze of a sovereign who commanded star spans without the crutch of psionic amplifiers or gene-forged longevity. Empress Zare, he replied, voice even, carrying through the translators with mechanical clarity. The Federation honors the right as inked. My form serves function over ornament. It has carried me through voids where prettier vessels faltered. He extended the data slate forward, its holos projecting the treaty seals and synchronized Zalari script. No retort, no heat, nearly the bow's completion, then a step back, hands clasping behind him. Protocol demanded he bristle, posture defensively, invoke some mammalian pride. Instead, he stood as if the slight were atmospheric static, irrelevant. The court noted it too. Whispers stirred like dust motes. She gestured sharply, and the right attendants advanced. Slender Zalari in silvered robes, bearing the binding chalice of veil essence, a shimmering fluid drawn from the artery's nexus. Jonah accepted it without hesitation, sipping the acrid distillate with a controlled swallow that betrayed no discomfort, though his throat worked visibly against its molecular bite. He passed it back, intoning the reciprocal vow in flawless Zalari phonemes, learned no doubt from briefings. The drones hummed approval. The treaty locked into the hall's central nexus, broadcasting empire-wide. Admiral Kresh rose then from the conservative block's tier, his armored crest fully flared, scales etched with battle scars. Imperatrix, he boomed, invoking the old title to underscore tradition. This offends the Codex Prime. Interdiction Law 47. Alpha forbids mammalian ingress to core worlds without purification rites. Writes this: specimen has not undergone. Expel him now, lest the ancestor shades fracture our hulls. Murmur swelled into a crest wave of agreement, tails lashing, secondary eyes darting to Zari for weakness. Lord Vexus of the Trade Synod nodded gravely, his faction's quiet support for the alliance now overshadowed by this gambit. Zari felt the political currents shift. Kresh's ploy to rally the purists, undermine her artery gambit before it bore fruit. Public expulsion would shatter the treaty. Capitulation would embolden them. She raised a clawed hand, silencing the hall like a grave field collapse. The Codex bends to imperial decree, Admiral. No expulsion, yet. Convene closed council at dusk reckoning. All factions heard, proofs weighed. Her voice brooked no appeal, eyes sweeping the tiers with predatory calm. Kresh subsided, but his glare lingered on the human, who remained statue still, expression neutral as if witnessing a routine drill. The court dispersed under her nod, nobles filing out in ordered streams, but Zare lingered on the dais, dismissing attendants with curt gestures until only her shadow guard remained. Jonah stood awaiting escort, data slate now holstered, his breathing steady, betraying no fatigue from the right's physiological toll. Humans, she recalled from briefings, endured such stressors with baffling nonchalance. Their short lifespans bred a disregard for bodily limits that bordered on pathology. "Captain," she said softly, descending one day's step, propriety cracking just enough for scrutiny. "You accept mockery as if it were protocol addendum. Why no defense? Your kind pride's ferocity in vids." He inclined his head slightly, gray eyes assessing her without presumption. "Defiance fractures alliances before they're forged, Empress. Words are tools. I wield mine for the treaty's keel, not ego's sail." A faint human quirk tugged his mouth. Not quite a smile, but an acknowledgement. "Besides, your court's barbs are sharper than most I've fielded. Precision in insult is a Zalari art." Intrigue stirred beneath her scales, unbidden. He parsed subtext effortlessly, mirroring her own political dance without the rote deference of lesser envoys. No bluster, no hidden tells of resentment in his posture. His pulse, monitored by the dais scanners, held metronomic. Curiosity overrode contempt. This was no mere ceremonial drone. "Shadow guard," she murmured into her comlink, voice pitched for discretion. Discreet observation on the consort quarters, full spectrum, biometrics, comms, interactions, report anomalies direct to me. The lead guard's crest dipped in affirmation, vanishing into alcoves without sound. Jonah noted the exchange but commented not, merely following the escort drone as it hummed to life. Zare watched him go, the hall's vastness contracting around her solitude. The alliance hung brittle as crystal lattice, Kresh's faction primed to shatter it, rival suitors like Prince Thalor circling from the rim worlds, external powers like the score of sniffing weakness. Yet this human, dismissed as crude scaffolding, had navigated her provocation without a waver. Binding them in shared duress, she turned to the Nexus hollows, artery projections pulsing with fresh treaty overlays. Trade flow stabilized, fleets repositioned. But unrest simmered. Observation would reveal if Miles was asset or liability. For now, the mockery had forged their pact, however grudging. Zare allowed a private crest twitch of anticipation. Empires turned on such pivots. In her private eyrie later, as dusk reckoning gloomed the spire's viewports, Zare reviewed the first observation feeds. Jonah unpacked methodically in his quarters. Minimal gear, a field kit, personal holopad, no extravagances. He multitasked seamlessly, calibrating his slate while scanning Zalari Codex excerpts aloud, committing protocols to memory with annotations in Terran shorthand. No complaints at the Spartan furnishings, no calls home. Instead, he adapted the room's climate controls manually, tweaking for his species' narrow tolerances without fuss. Her analyst chimed, "Anomaly, imperatrix. Human endurance metrics exceed norms. Sustained focus post-right ingestion, no metabolic dip." Zari silenced the feed, secondary eyes narrowing. Dismissal tempted, but curiosity rooted deeper. Kresh's counsel loomed. She'd need every edge. This human steadiness might prove the anomaly her Imperium required. Across the spire, Jonah settled onto the bunk, exhaling slowly. The Empress's barbs stung less than expected, sharp yes, but laced with the precision of someone fencing shadows. He'd fielded worse from pirate holds and Federation hardliners. Protocol held, the treaty's ink was dry. But her eyes, those multifaceted stares, held depths worth mapping. He pulled up artery schematics, cross-referencing score of incursion patterns. Work called. Alliances endured through quiet competence, not grand retorts. The council chamber awaited, brittle bargain teetering. Zare would steer it true, or break it on her terms. Zare swept into the council chamber, her iridescent robes whispering against the polished obsidian floor, the weight of 1,000 eyes pinning her like lancefire. The air hummed with the low thrum of ritual drones, their holographic fields projecting the treaty's gilded seals above the central dais. Courtiers lined the vaulted walls, their crest feathers twitching in barely veiled anticipation. Gossip had already slithered through the halls like smoke from a sabotaged engine. The human consort, a fragile afterthought to bind Terra's fleets to her imperium. Or a crack in the throne's armor. She ascended the dais with measured grace, her primary claws clicking precisely on each step, signaling the chamber to absolute stillness. "The ratification commences," she intoned, voice resonant through the amplification field. "By ancient right, the treaty seals. Envoy Miles, present the navigational sigil." Jonah Miles stood at the chamber's heart, unarmored in the stark Terran diplomatic tunic that clung to his compact frame like a second skin. No crest, no bioluminescent markings, just pale skin and steady eyes that scanned the holographic lattice without a flicker. Zeray watched from her throne perch formal distance her shield. She would not lean forward, would not betray the calculations churning beneath her composure. The sigil protocol was no mere flourish, a labyrinth of interstellar vectors, temporal alignments and harmonic frequencies that even seasoned Zilari navigators fumbled under scrutiny. Humans with their blunt senses were expected to recite from script, not improvise. He moved without hesitation, fingers dancing across the interface orb. A cascade of light bloomed as he aligned the first vector cluster, threading the Imperium's core worlds through a simulated warp breach. Murmurs rippled from the courtiers' benches, feathers rustling like dry leaves. Jonah pivoted seamlessly, modulating the signal pulse with his offhand while vocalizing the ratification chant in flawless High Zilari, accents sharp as a blade's edge. The lattice stabilized, harmonics resonating pure. No drift, no compensatory flares. The treaty seal ignited an emerald fire, binding her realm to Terra's upstart alliance. "Competence beyond rehearsal," whispered Lady Visera to her cluster, her secondary eyes narrowing. Zare caught the words, her own crest flattening imperceptibly. Not luck. The human had internalized the protocol's fractal depths in days, where Zalaria depths trained cycles. She quelled the intrigue coiling in her gut. Admiration was a luxury, control the necessity. The chamber's hush fractured as Junior Magistrate Kaler arose from the lower tiers, his robes stiff with self-importance, beak claws clutching a data slate. "Empress," the interdiction statute invokes. "This Terran has navigated unsanctioned harmonics. Exile him to the rim worlds, lest his primitives taint our rights." Zaray's gaze pinned him like a specimen. Pressure from the traditionalists, Kalor's faction, ever eager to purge lesser influences before Henry's bloc could exploit them. Exile would fracture the treaty on day one, handing rivals the shards. "Silence, magistrate," she commanded, her voice a silken lash. "The statute binds unsanctioned intent, not flawless execution. Enforce boundaries. Restricted access to core archives until vetted. No exile. The right stands ratified." Kalor subsided, crest drooping, but the seed of dissent lingered in the air. Zare felt the chamber's pulse shift, courtiers exchanging glances, weighing her restraint against impulsive purge. Stability first, tests later. Then Lord Henry stirred, the rival suitor's massive frame uncoiling from his noble perch, like a predator from shadow. His plumage gleamed with augmented opulence, signaling wealth and lineage that dwarfed Jonah's plain form. "A display of honor, Empress, to honor the Union," Henry boomed, activating his personal right field. The protocol was ancient, a noble's challenge dance, demanding reciprocal flourish from the consort. Refusal invited humiliation, acceptance, a clash of prowess where humans notoriously faltered, their frames too frail for the aerial flourishes, their instincts too grounded. Zare tensed inwardly, claws gripping the throne's arms. Henry's ploy was transparent: topple the human publicly. Force her hand to annulment or weakness. Censure him now, and his block fractures the court mid-ratification. Allow it, preserve the ritual's sanctity. "Proceed, Lord Henry," she decreed evenly. The consort responds as protocol dictates. Henry launched into the display with predatory elegance, wings unfurling to span thrice Jonah's height, bioluminescence tracing arcs of mock combat, lunges, spins, harmonic bursts simulating fleet maneuvers. The chamber echoed with approving trills. This was Zalari supremacy incarnate, a reminder that alliances bent to imperial might. Courtiers leaned in, expecting the humans crumble. Volatility, the diplomats' reports claimed, a species prone to rash pride. Jonah did not flinch. He stepped forward, not into mimicry, but reversion, bowing precisely to the entry vector of the right, then tracing a single understated sigil in the air with one hand. The treaty's binding harmonic, unadorned. No wings, no flare. Honor received, he stated in crisp Zalari, voice carrying without amplification. Protocol yields to ratified union. I defer reciprocity to preserve the seal. The chamber stilled. Henry hovered mid-arc, plumage flickering in confusion. Expectation shattered. Reciprocal honors demanded escalation. Refusal was elegant deflection, turning provocation to protocol's shield. No volatility, no bluster, just composure, threading the right's loophole with surgical calm. Zara watched Henry's secondary eyes dilate, his descent awkward, the display fizzling without climax. Murmurs swelled anew. He reads the subtextures. Restraint as weapon. Henry landed heavily, beak parting in a hiss that passed for chagrin. Novel deference, Terran. Jonah inclined his head, expression neutral, eyes meeting Zari's for a fraction too long, a silent acknowledgement across the divide. She rose then, robes cascading like a banner unfurled. The human had not just endured, he had multitasked the chamber's politics mid-right, reading alliances, diffusing without dominance. Expectations of fragile impulsiveness lay in ruins. Public denouncement would elevate Henry's martyrdom, better to bind observation to duty. Lord Henry's display honors tradition. Envoy Miles upholds protocol. Henceforth the consort integrates under supervised capacity. Shadow navigators to core duties, full audit trails. No further disruptions. Courtiers shifted, feathers settling, approval laced with unease. Kaelor scowled, Henry's block exchanging hooded glances. But the treaty held, ratification sealed. Zaray descended the dais, ormal distance cracking just enough for proximity as she approached Jonah. Up close, his scent was earthy, vital, lacking the chemical tang of Zalari augmentations. You navigated more than sigils today, Captain, she murmured. Low enough for only him. The court notes it, his eyes crinkled faintly, humility in the curve. Protocol serves the Alliance Empress. Nothing more. No boast. Yet the effortless read of her intent lingered between them. A bridge of mutual calibration. As the chamber dispersed in ritual recess, Zare lingered on the dais, watching Jonah confer briefly with his minimal retinue. Henry stalked out, allies clustering like storm clouds, but the human's composure had planted doubt. Observation regime. Yes, to test limits. But already, the formality bent toward revelation. What other ceremonial depths hid in this unassuming frame? The Imperium's stability demanded answers, and perhaps, alliance with the extraordinary ordinary. Alarms pierced the vaulted chamber like splintered crystal, holographic displays erupting across the dais in jagged crimson flares. Zare straightened, her crest frills flaring instinctively as the central projection coalesced. A Zalari supply convoy, 30 hulks strong, fracturing amid the Sultran Rift's gravitational maelstrom, drives failing, inertial dampeners shearing, granaries adrift, enough to starve 3 rimworld sectors if they scattered. Council reconvenes, she commanded, voice's silken blade cutting through the recess murmurs. Attendants scrambled, robes whispering like dry leaves. Jonah Miles turned from his retinue, brow furrowed in that human way, calm assessment. No panic. Henry's faction halted at the archway, eyes gleaming with opportunistic hunger. The rift's telemetry scrolled, cascade failure from microfractures in the convoy's tertiary inertial nodes, exacerbated by rift eddies. Standard protocol demanded full Zalari salvage teams, but political tempests brewed. Rival suitors whispering of her weakened grip, external powers probing the treaty's seams. Joint coordination with Terrans was mandated by the Alliance Charter. Yet who to entrust? Jonah stepped forward unbidden, his protocol tunic stark against the chamber's iridescent stone. Empress, if I may, my vessel's sensor suite interfaced with your fleet nets during transit. I volunteer as liaison for the relief op. Terran drive shafts share inertial architectures with your Mark 6s. I've run diagnostics on similar cascades. Henry's mandibles clicked derisively from the sidelines. A ceremonial consort presumes to salvage Imperial assets? The human overreaches. Zaray met Jonah's gaze, probing for artifice. His posture held steady, eyes clear. No Terran guile she could discern, only that infuriating steadiness. The convoy's lead hauler bucked wildly in the hollow, crew signals frantic. Delay meant loss. Granted, she said. Liaison Miles, embed with Vanguard Squadron. Report progress via secure relay. Fail, and the fault is yours." He inclined his head, precise. "Understood, Empress." Within moments, his shuttle detached from the palace docks, streaking toward the rift. Hours blurred into the relentless cycle of command. Zare paced the tactical nexus, frill veins pulsing with suppressed strain as feeds poured in. Political missives piled. Sector governors pleading, Hemry's proxies demanding exclusive Zalari control to preserve purity. The treaty teetered. Any perceived Terran incompetence would fuel secession cries. Then, Jonah's relay crackled live. His face filled the primary display, sweat beading on his human brow amid the shuttle's dim-lit cockpit, rift lightning strobing behind. Empress, convoy stabilized. Inertial fault traced a harmonic resonance in the node housings, overlooked in pre-rift manifests. Standard celery sweeps miss it because rift eddies mask the subfrequency. I recalibrated the dampener coils using a phased pulse from our auxiliary emitters. "Crew's locking it now, Persa." "Crew?" Zalari techs swarmed the hauler's underbelly in the split feed, their manipulators flying under his direction, tools arcing, nodes humming back to life. One tech paused, crest half-raised in bewilderment, then nodded sharply and pressed on. The convoy's drives throbbed green. Zaraya's adjuncts murmured, "Circumstantial," she pronounced coolly, though doubt coiled in her gut. Humans fiddled with tools like children with toys, yet this, adjunct Kale. Pull performance logs and maintenance records on those haulers. Cross-reference every manifest from the core yards. If the human's pulse holds, quantify it. Kale's frills quivered in assent, claws dancing over consoles. Minutes stretched. The convoy realigned, edging from the rift's jaws. Zara watched Jonah multitask seamlessly, directing repairs via split audio, plotting escape vectors on a secondary plot, even querying a Solari engineer's dialect mid-command to clarify a torque spec. No fatigue in his voice, just steady rhythm as if juggling warp cascades were promenade chatter. Emery burst into the nexus unannounced, flanked by council hardliners. Empress, a courier drone intercepted en route to Terran channels, logs implicating Miles in intelligence ops. Sub-Rosa data bursts during his shuttle transit. He's no mere envoy. He's a spy threading our nets. The chamber iced. Zare accessed the intercept. Encrypted pings. Terran sigils masked as diagnostic telemetry. Treaty poison. Scandal enough to shatter the marriage pact. Invite rival fleets. Counselors clamored, "Detain him! Purge the human taint!" Her frills locked flat, masking the surge. "Arrest now," screamed weakness, handed Hemry the narrative. But trust Jonah, the fix was no fluke. Logs confirmed the fault, predating his involvement. Kale leaned in. Records verify. Node harmonics unlogged for cycles. His intervention saved 80% yield. Zare raised a claw, silencing the din. Detention is denied. The convoy drifts because of Imperial oversights, not Terran ploy. Miles leads a supervised risk assessment team. Full audit of Rift protocols. Zalari and Terran integrated. Hemry, you oversee the watch personally. Prove your suspicions, or yield to results. Hemry's eyes narrowed to slits, mandibles grinding, but protocol bound him. "As you decree, Empress." He stalked out, allies trailing like venomous shadows. Zare's pulse thrummed as the nexus cleared for recess. Jonah's team assembled in the feeds, Zalari salvers clustering around him, their initial stiffness thawing into clipped queries. He knelt by a node housing, tracing seams with a gloved finger, explaining the resonance math in baseline trade tongue, patient as a mentor. One young tech mimicked the gesture, frills perking in realization. She lingered at the primary console, replaying the logs. Humans endured the rift's grav shear without stabilizers, spotted patterns in noise her crews rode scanned past. Not superiority. Difference. Sharp as a blade's edge, the Imperium's granaries secured, factions checked. But the courier's shadow lingered. Trust was a gamble, yet capability spoke. Jonah Miles was no fragile ornament. A subvocal ping from Kale. Early audit traces showed the harmonic flaw in 12 prior convoys, unaddressed. Zare's crest twitched. A quiet thrill amid the intrigue. Observation deepened. Partnership stirred. The rift had forced hands, but what it revealed bent the game toward unforeseen alliance. Jonah's voice cut through the relay once more. Fatigue absent after 12 cycles. Assessment team deploying, Empress. Combined protocols. Your crew's precision, our adaptability. We'll map the fault lattice before the next transit window. Acknowledged, she replied, voice steady. Imperium watches closely, Captain. Deliver. In the tactical glow, Zaray allowed a private flex of her frills. Prejudice cracked. Competence endured. The treaty's roots delved deeper, promising stability forged in crisis's fire. A thunderous crack split the air beneath the skycord dais, blue lightning erupting in a savage bloom that hurled attendants skyward like shattered ornaments. Zaray felt the platform buck beneath her throne, the imperial banners whipping wild as screams pierced the parade's pomp. Shards of energized crystal rained down, scoring her guard's scales and igniting robes in acrid flares. A direct strike at her heart, her prestige, amid the throng of Zilari nobility and off-world envoys. She gripped the throne's arms, frills flaring instinctively. But before the world could tilt into chaos, Captain Jonah Miles was there. The human envoy, her nominal consort still clad in the treaty's ceremonial silks, lunged past a crumpling honor guard, snatching a fallen vibroblade from the dais floor. His voice cut through the din, calm and precise, as if directing a drill rather than dodging death. Secondary charges. Left flank, under the banner poles. Isolate the emitters, now. Guards hesitated a heartbeat, their training protocols clashing with the blast's disarray. But Jonah didn't wait. He barked coordinates in flawless Zilari, pointing with the blade's glowing edge, his free hand already scanning the buckling platform's seams. Zaray watched, transfixed, as he pivoted to her side, muscles coiling under that unassuming frame. The dais groaned, a support strut shearing away in sparks, and he scooped her up, effortless, unyielding, hoisting her imperial form as if she weighed no more than a shuttle manifest. His shoulder took the brunt of a falling strut, armor denting but not slowing him as he vaulted them both to solid ground. They landed in a crouch, Zaray's frills pulsing with shock, her mind reeling at the indignity and the impossibility. No Zilari male, not even her elite Praetorians, moved with such raw, adaptive precision, spotting threats amid pandemonium, commandeering a blade without pause, bearing her weight through fire. He set her down gently. Eyes already sweeping for more dangers, blade reversed to hand off to a recovering guard. Clear, he said simply, as if he'd merely adjusted a seating chart. Security swarmed in, their scanners humming as the parade dissolved into controlled evacuation. Zaray rose, smoothing her robes with regal command, her voice projecting over the chaos. Secure the perimeter. No panic. This is an affront, not a rout. But inwardly, her frills twitched. The human's competence burned away another layer of her court's whispered disdain. Lethal training, hidden beneath protocol. What else did Terra conceal in this ordinary envoy? By the time they reached the fortified war chamber beneath the skycord, traces had solidified. Hollow displays flickered with mercenary signatures. A satellite syndicate known for deniable strikes, linked inexorably to Lord Henry's faction. The noble's sigils marked the detonator codes. His rival house's whispers now screams for blood. The War Council assembled in a fury of crests and claws, Admiral Kresh pounding a fist that cracked the table slate. Instantaneous retaliation. Henry's fleet is vulnerable at the outer rims. Strike now, Empress, before his dogs scatter. Zara stood at the chamber's head, Jonah a silent shadow at her right. Protocol, now necessity. Her counselor's eyes flicked to him, resentment simmering, but she quelled it with a raised frill. Vengeance without proof invites rebellion. We trace every thread publicly. Henry will condemn himself in the light of inquiry. Murmurs rippled. Kresh's mandibles clicked in protest. Restraint invites weakness, Sovereign. The Imperium bleeds prestige, and rashness bleeds fleets. She cut in, voice like tempered crystal. Order the public tribunal, at dawn. Mobilize scouts for evidence, not broadsides. Sovereign will prevails. The council bowed grudgingly, their hot blood cooled by her unyielding poise. Jonah nodded faintly beside her, saying nothing, but she caught the subtle approval in his posture, respect for her calculus, mirroring his own. The days blurred into a gauntlet of public duties, each a stage for defiance. At the grand receipt of petitions, Zaray kept Jonah visibly at her side, his hand near hers on the dais rail, a signal of reliance amid the attack's shadow. Whispers coiled through the court like smoke. The alien consort saves the throne? Khemri's folly elevates a soft skin? Rival suitors sneered openly, Lord Vexer's crest flaring as he petitioned for traditional wards against off-world taint. Zaray met their scorn with steel, her decrees crisp, Jonah's presence a deliberate thorn. Counter-provocation demanded display. The treaty's consort was no ornament now. In the vaulted halls between audiences, attendants averted eyes, but the murmurs thickened. Jonah walked with quiet vigilance, his scans subtle, adapting to Zalari crowd flows as if born to them. Zaray felt the shift in him too. No boast, just steady competence. Juggling her security briefings while murmuring tactical notes on syndicate patterns she'd overlooked. Human multitasking, effortless, where her aides faltered under strain. Elder Consul Lirath cornered her in the antechamber after the evening levee, his ancient frills drooping with feigned concern, eyes sharp as relic blades. Sovereign, this alliance jeopardizes succession. Henry's strike was no coincidence. Your consort's elevation mocks the bloodlines. The house's murmur of diluted heirs, of Imperium bartered to primitives, reconsider, before fractures widen. Zaray turned, her form towering in the dim light, frills fully extended in controlled ire. Lirath had served her dam, his loyalty etched in scars, but his flaw, clinging to ossified traditions, blinded him to new strengths. The treaty secures our borders, Consul, against syndicates and worse. Henry's faction preys on division. I will not feed it. Jonah Miles stands as a cord shield. His actions at the dais proved what bloodlines cannot. We double down. Enhanced guards for the envoy. Joint briefings with Terran feeds. The Imperium endures through adaptation, not antiquity. Lirath's crest dimmed, a flicker of doubt crossing his scaled face. As you decree, Sovereign. Yet the court watches. He withdrew, leaving Zaray alone with her thoughts, and Jonah, lingering at the chamber's edge, reviewing holologs with unflagging focus. Hours into the night, while her aides sought rest, he persisted, connecting syndicate routes to Henry's trade logs in patterns her analysts chased wrote. She approached, propriety cracking in the quiet. Your intervention, it was not mere luck. He looked up, expression humble, no trace of pride. Training, Empress. Humans drill for the worst, adapt, or perish. Your restraint today, that saved more lives than any blade. A private flex of her frills. Unseen. Contempt's shell fractured further. Here was no primitive pawn, but a partner whose normal endurance outlasted her court. The treaty's roots delved deeper still, binding not just fleets but fates. Yet as tribunal dawn loomed, shadows stirred. Henry's retaliation brewed, and public eyes demanded proof of their unlikely union's steel. In the tactical hush, Zaray placed a clawed hand near his on the console, the gesture electric. Prejudice yielded to Alliance's fire. Together, they would reckon with the assassin's reckoning. Lord Henry's crest flared crimson as he thrust a crystalline data slate forward, its holographic projection blooming like a venomous flower amid the Imperial Council's vaulted chamber. This fabricated evidence, from anonymous sources no less, proves the Terran consort's hand in the recent assassinations. Captain Miles whispers poisons into Her Majesty's ear, subverting our sacred alliances. I move for his immediate denunciation and expulsion to preserve noble honor. Zaray sat rigid upon the throne dais, her iridescent scales catching the chamber's lumen globes in a sheen of restrained fury. The air hummed with factional murmurs, Henry's allies nodding like synchronized predators while others shifted uneasily. Jonah stood at her right, protocol still in his crisp Terran uniform, his face a mask of calm that belied the storm she sensed brewing beneath. Her clawed fingers tightened on the armrest. After their shared vigil over the console, this smear felt personal. A blade aimed at the fragile bridge they had begun to forge. Counselors clamored assent, votes flickering on the central orb like gathering storm clouds. Zaray's mind raced through patronage webs. Henry's block controlled key fleet yards, their pressure a calculated ploy to fracture her treaty before it hardened. She could yield, placate, and buy time. But at what cost to the human who had just unraveled an assassin plot with quiet ingenuity? Before the orb could seal the motion, Jonah stepped forward, his voice cutting clear and unyielding. Esteemed counselors, if I may present counter-evidence. He activated his own slate, intercepted transmissions unfolding in stark glyphs, Henry's encrypted orders to a mercenary syndicate, scripting the evidence and timing its leak. Gasps rippled. A Zalari lord's tale lashed in shock. These communications, traced through syndicate relays, reveal not foreign intrigue but domestic fabrication. Worse, the same network funds disruptions across the rim worlds, your worlds. I propose a counteroffensive, targeted intercepts on their command nodes, dismantling the ring before it strikes again. Henry's scales blanched to ash gray. Lies from a soft-skinned outsider. He fabricates to cling to power. Zara rose then, her presence silencing the chamber like a gravitational eclipse. Enough. Captain Miles's evidence bears the sovereign seal of verification. My own cryptologists confirm it. Her voice thrummed with imperial steel, yet beneath lurked a crack of defiance born from that console-side touch. We will not purge on whispers. I shield the consort's legal standing and convene an independent tribunal at dawn. Let truth, not faction, decide. The council recoiled. Henry's eyes narrowed to slits, but the orb reset under her override. As chambers emptied in stunned procession, Saray caught Jonah's gaze. Gratitude unspoken, alliance tempered in fire. Yet doubt gnawed. Had she gambled her throne on a human's word alone? Night cloaked the palace spires when contingency signals pierced Zaray's private sanctum. Alarms trilled softly from her wrist gauntlet. Jonah's quarters breached. She surged from her meditation alcove, summoning guards with a terse command. Secure the consort. Henry moves prematurely. In the shadowed corridors, Zaray's elite phalanx, clad in null-field armor, converged on the intrusion. Jonah's door hung ajar, stun darts scarring the frame. Inside he grappled a cloaked assailant, his Terran frame twisting with efficient leverage born of unseen training. One guard's plasma lance felled a second shadow. Zaray arrived as the last mercenary crumpled under Jonah's improvised chokehold. A lamp cord twisted into restraint. Imperatrix, Jonah panted, straightening with humble deference. No boast in his stance. Your signal saved the night. She surveyed the bound cell, Henry's insignia etched on a discarded blade. They sought to silence before tribunal. Your vigilance matched ours. Her claw brushed his shoulder briefly, propriety fraying at the edges. His resilience stirred something beyond politics, a quiet awe at this human's unyielding poise. Dawn's tribunal loomed, but Henry's desperation demanded more. In her strategy vault, Zare faced Jonah across the holomap, fleet admirals hovering in holographic attendance. The syndicate festers, she declared, scales rippling with resolve. Captain, you unraveled their lies. Lead the strike, neutralize their core. I confer military prerogative upon you. Murmurs erupted from the projections. An admiral's frills quivered. A human commanding Zellery blades? Unprecedented. Precisely. Zure cut in, her gaze locking Jonah's. It was gamble incarnate, elevating a consort to war leader, but his pattern sight had connected dots her analysts missed. Prove the council's doubt, folly. Jonah nodded, no arrogance, merely focus. We'll use your null fields for stealth insertion, paired with my intercept algorithms. 3 teams, flanks pinch the nodes, center severs command. Minimal casualties, mercenaries routed, evidence secured. From Zare's command throne hours later, feeds streamed the ops pulse. Jonah moved at the vanguard, his voice steady over comms. Team Alpha, adjust for interference, reroute through auxiliary vents. He juggled drone feeds, syndicate chatter, and squad positions without falter, multitasking where Zellery officers faltered under load. When a node erupted in ambush, Jonah's creativity flared, improvised breaching charges from power cells, patterned their defenses, their rote, not adaptive. Her admirals leaned in, frills unfurling in disbelief. He reads their flows like a savant, connects energy signatures to patrol rhythms we overlooked. Explosions bloomed silently on hollows. Jonah's teams neutralized the ring in under an hour, returning with data crystals brimming. Henry's direct patronage, treasonous pacts with rival powers. The human emerged unscathed, bloodied knife in hand, not from glory, but necessity, his endurance carrying squads through a grueling pursuit where others flagged. Zare met him in the vault, council feeds already lighting with the evidence's broadcast. You have reshaped the board, Captain. Henry's chains unravel. He wiped sweat from his brow, humble fatigue etching lines. Your guard's precision made it possible. We compliment. Her claw extended, not near, but clasping his forearm in formal accord, the crack and propriety, now a chasm bridged by respect. Investigate Henry's full patronage. And Captain Miles, you retain place on my command staff. No longer consort alone, but partner in Imperium's defense. Henry's faction crumbled as auditors descended, Nobles who once bayed for purge now whispered of the humans' impossible clarity. Zaray felt the shift. Contempt forged into alliance, her strength amplified by this unassuming Terran's gifts. The tribunal would affirm loyalty, but the counterstrike had already redrawn the court, prejudice yielding fully to partnership's blaze. In the vault's hush, Jonah reviewed final logs beside her, their hands brushing the console once more. Together they turned toward the gathering storm of greater threats. Alarms shattered the vault's fragile calm, crimson strobes pulsing across gilded walls as Zaray's calm implant flared with urgent dispatches. Empress, Hemry's forces have seized the outer orbitals, Obren blockaders seal the supply lanes. Core worlds starve within cycles. Her advisor's voice cracked through the link, laced with the pallor of panic. Zaray straightened, her iridescent scales rippling with restrained fury, the weight of her diadem suddenly leaden. Beside her, Jonah Miles pivoted smoothly, his human eyes already scanning the vault's secondary holos that flickered to life unbidden. Fleet dispositions, trade vectors, noble house loyalties fracturing like brittle crystal. Their hands had only just parted from the console. Now the galaxy conspired to tear them asunder. Hemry, she hissed, the name venom on her tongue. The Duke's ambition had simmered for orbits, but this, coordinating with Obren privateers to choke her Imperium's veins, was treason distilled. Revolt brewed in the undercities, whispers of famine igniting mob fury. Internal blade and external noose. Perfection in peril. Jonah's fingers danced across the interface, pulling layered schematics without a glance spared for her shock. Blockade patterns are holding at 60% efficiency. Obran design, but sloppy execution. They've left nocturnal gaps in the sensor web, aligned with your ecliptic storms. His voice remained even, as if plotting a banquet menu rather than her empire's salvation. Multitasking flowed from him like breath, one hand sketching breach vectors, the other cueing Terran convoy manifests from his wrist link. She watched, transfixed despite the crisis. Humans juggled chaos as Zaleri pondered it. Where her tacticians would convene for deliberation, he wove solutions from disparate threads. You propose exploitation of these gaps? A coalition thrust, your squadrons for heavy suppression. Pin the blockaders at zenith. Terran escorts slip the nightside breaches, masked by storm interference, and punch supply convoys through. Risky, but it resumes lifelines before riots consume the capital. He rotated the holo, highlighting convergence points with casual precision. Pattern recognition, she realized, connecting Obren's sensor blind spots to Zilari storm cycles and Terran evasion drills her people deemed reckless improvisation. Zaray nodded once, authority reasserting itself. Convene the War Council at once. We strike before Hemry consolidates. Hours blurred into preparation, but the palace's shadows deepened with treachery. Scheduled blackouts for energy rationing plunged the spires into engineered night, a necessity born of strangled power grids. Zaray strode the Royal Archives' vaulted halls, scrolls of ancient pacts glowing faintly under emergency lumens, seeking precedents to bind wavering nobles. Jonah shadowed her, his presence a quiet anchor amid the storm. Then, movement. A flicker in the periphery, cloaked figures melting from alcoves like smoke. Assassins, Hemry's vanguard, their vibro daggers humming lethal intent. Shouts erupted from distant guards, blaster fire cracked the air. Empress, down. Jonah's arm hooked her waist, propelling her behind a plinth as the first blade arced through empty space. He didn't hesitate, drawing his compact Terran pulse pistol with fluid economy, coordinating defenses via implant even as he moved. Security to Archive Alpha. 3 intruders, Archive Vector. Flank from service ducts. Zaray drew her own ceremonial plasma lance, scales flaring battle blue, but Jonah was already gone, a blur of calculated motion. He intercepted the lead assassin mid-leap, dodging a vibro slash that scored the marble floor. His counter was no brute force. A feint drawing the killer off balance, then a precise knee to the joint, followed by a chokehold that silenced without fatal mess. Pattern of strikes memorized from Sims, executed under fatigue that would fell as a Lari guard after double shift. The Archive's central dais became their arena. Another assassin lunged for Zaray. She parried, lance humming, but Jonah multitasked seamlessly, dispatching his foe while barking overrides to seal bulkheads, trapping the third in a crossfire of automated defenses he'd jury-rigged en route. Gasping, the infiltrator crumpled as guards swarmed. Zaray rose, lance lowered, her breath steady but eyes wide at his efficiency. He protected her not with alien flash but human grit, enduring the blackouts disorientation, adapting palace protocols on the fly, reading the assassin's formation like a poorly scripted play. You fight as if born to these halls. Training? He said simply, holstering his weapon, wiping sweat with a humble shrug. No boast, just fact. Her respect deepened, a crack in Imperial Reserve. Dawn's council chamber thrummed with noble outrage, holographic blockades looming like nooses over the obsidian table. Warlord Kresh, Henry's rival yet no ally, slammed a fist. Martial law, Empress. Purge the Undercities, sever the Terran Treaty, appease the houses demanding pure bloodlines. This human gambit invites Oberyn's scorn. Murmurs swelled, eyes flicking to Jonah at her side. Dismissive at first, now laced with unease after archive whispers spread. Zara felt the political vice. Yield and lose her throne to conservatives, stand firm and risk all. She rose, voice a silken blade. I refuse. The treaty endures. Captain Miles's coalition breaches the blockade tonight. Zalari might with Terran cunning. Henry's coup dies exposed. Publicly she clasped Jonah's shoulder, a gesture freighted with intent. Gasps rippled. The Empress touched a consort as equal. Nobles shifted, Kresh's mandibles clicking doubt. Jonah met their stares calmly, outlining the plan anew. Risks quantified, contingencies layered, his adaptability shown, weaving Zellery honor codes into Terran feints, earning grudging nods. Zare watched Alien's amazement brew. Her council, once neutral to this primitive, now researched him mid-session via implants, queries flashing, human endurance metrics, tactical innovation precedents. Nightside command deck pulsed with orchestrated fury. Zare at the central throne, Jonah beside her in auxiliary tack station, their partnership a living circuit. Squadrons Alpha through Delta, zenith suppression fire, she commanded, her fleet's massed lances lancing Oberyn hulls. Terran escorts breaching now, Jonah relayed, juggling feeds. Storm masks, convoy sinks, real-time adjustments. His voice never wavered through cycles of strain. Humans endured where Zalari rotated shifts. Creativity flared, a novel EMP pulse variant, improvised from Terran scraps and Zalari amplifiers. Crippling mercenary hubs without full engagement. Explosions bloomed across the void, blockaders fracturing. Henry's hidden docks erupting in chain reactions. Joint victory crystallized as supply convoys surged through, lifelines restored. Cheers erupted on deck, Zarai's scales shimmered triumph gold. Intercepts flooded in. Henry's comms treason bare. Oberyn bribes logged, noble pledges forged. The War Council, summoned mid-battle, watched holograms damn their foe. Kresh bowed first. The treaty, ratified. Allegiance renewed, sovereign. Nobles followed, compelled by evidence and awe. Saray turned to Jonah, formality fracturing into something raw. You have saved us, not as consort, but equal. Rise, imperial consort and joint marshal. Command fleets at my side. Sovereignty remains mine, partnership ours. He knelt briefly, then stood, eyes meeting hers with quiet gratitude. Honored, Empress. Together. In the command deck's afterglow, as crews mingled, Solari toasting Terran resilience with shared fervor, Zare felt the shift. She'd been born to rule, wielding fleets and courts like extensions of will, yet true power bloomed in this, finding an equal human humility fusing with her steel to forge an imperium unassailable. Their hands brushed the tack console once more, turning toward horizons yet unconquered.